Our first presenter is Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger. Congressman Ruppersberger is serving his 5th term in the United States House of Representatives for the citizens of Maryland's 2nd District. Congressman Ruppersberger is known as a common-sense consensus builder who can and does work with members on both sides of the aisle. Congressman Ruppersberger was the first Democratic freshman ever appointed to the House Select Committee on Intelligence. That committee oversees the collection and analysis of intelligence information to ensure our national security and to prevent potential crisis situations, especially terrorist activity. He serves as the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee. He previously served on the Powerful Appropriations, Government Reform, and also the House Armed Services Committee. His district includes parts of Baltimore City, as well as Baltimore, Anne Arundel, Harford, and Howard counties. It also includes the Port of Baltimore and thousands of business and manufacturing concerns dependent on it. The 2nd District is also very important from a national security perspective, as it's home to the National Security Agency, Fort Meade, U.S. Cyber Command, Aberdeen Proving Ground, the Coast Guard Yard at Curtis Bay, and other installations essential to our country's national security. All of you know him from his terms as member of the County Council in Baltimore County, as well as the County Executive for 2 terms. He's a native of Baltimore City. Please welcome Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger.
Good morning, everybody. It's a little romantic in here. How come you have the lights down? This is not used to this early in the morning. Well, first thing, it's great to be here with the Greater Baltimore Committee. When I was a Baltimore County executive, I felt very strongly that it was so important to have business, government, and academia all working together, and it makes Baltimore and our whole region strong. And one of the most important things that we have to do in this economy and what we do every day is to create jobs. So thank you all for what you do. Thank you for being involved here, and hopefully we'll be able to educate you a little bit about something very serious to all of us and to our country, and that's cyber attacks. Also, I want to thank you, Don. Don and I go way back when Don was a state senator, done a great job. How many years have you been here president of the Greater Baltimore Committee? 10 years. Okay, well, great job, and thank you for what you do. Before I get started, I want to remind you of a story of a physicist who had won the Nobel Prize and was traveling all over the country giving the same speech over and over again in a very complicated area of physics. He kept going around giving the same speech again, over and over again. And one day, he was headed to Memphis, and his chauffeur said, "You know, Professor, I've heard that same speech so many times, I think I could give it myself from memory." And the professor said, "Well, look, they don't know me well in Memphis. Why don't you get up and you give the lecture, and I'll take your uniform as a chauffeur, and I'll sit in the audience while you give the speech." And so they did. They got to the lecture hall, and the chauffeur got up and gave the speech, speaking for an hour, word for word, and getting a standing ovation. And the physicist who was seated in the audience was amazed. But then somebody raised their hand and said, "Professor, that was an outstanding lecture on a very complex area of physics, but I have a few questions." He goes into a 3-paragraph question about various equations and formulas and theories. The chauffeur looked at him and said, "That's got to be the most stupidest question I've ever heard, and just to show you how dumb it is, I'm going to have my chauffeur answer the question." Now, I have to admit, I did steal that joke from Leon Panetta, and no, I didn't have the Chinese government hack into his computer either to get it. You know, we have a chauffeur here today. His name is Bob Meinhardt. He's my chauffeur. Bob, stand up. He is our technical advisor on the Intelligence Committee, and he's an engineer. He's worked at CIA, NSA, NRO. And Bob is one of those individuals, you're only as good as your staff, that has really helped a lot of us dealing in the area of technology and cyber and space and those type of things. I also want to thank my good friend, Chairman Mike Rogers. He lives in the suburbs of Detroit, and really Ann Arbor, Michigan. Came from Northern Virginia, probably gets the award for coming the furthest way. And I know I owe you one, but please, no 7:30 breakfast meeting speeches in Detroit. You know, okay, but I do owe you, and I know that's important. But it's important, I think, that what we do, and you've come here today to talk to my area, my constituents, and thank you for being here, Mike. I really appreciate it. And by the way, Mike will have to leave, so why? Because we have hearings all day today. There's a lot going on the Libya issue and a lot of things that we do have to deal with. Well, when Chairman Rogers and I took over the leadership of the Intelligence Committee, we made a bipartisanship commitment that we were going to work together. We believe that national security and what we do in intelligence is so important that we could not have partisan politics get in the way. After we took over the leadership of the Intelligence Committee, Washington Post columnist David Ignatius wrote a piece for the Washington Post where he called the Intelligence Committee a, quote, rare example of bipartisanship after years of being one of the meanest snake pits in Congress. Now, the only reason I bring that up, we all know what's happening in Washington. It's very unfortunate. And we have to come together as Republicans and Democrats, as Americans. But I can say this, that Mike and I trust each other, we work together, and we work for our country. So I just want to, again, acknowledge that because it starts at the top, and Mike is chairman of the committee. On the Intelligence Committee, we oversee 16 intelligence agencies, CIA, NSA, military intelligence, FBI, NRO, the satellites, the Director of National Intelligence. We do the budgeting, and we also do all of the oversight. We are committed, and what our job is to, again, provide all our intelligence people throughout the world the resources, capabilities, and authorities they need to keep our country safe. Now, whether it's ensuring we have the latest in technology to track terrorists around the world or help prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons, it's our responsibility on the Intelligence Committee to make sure this all happens. We also help manage the future of our satellite and space programs as well, which is really one of the most important issues that we face today, cyber security. Chairman Rogers and I also, in our roles in leadership on the Intelligence Committee, travel all around the world. We meet and go to different hot spots to meet with our intelligence professionals, our military, and it's so important that we do this and not get the information just by hearings in Washington. And by the way, it includes Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, many, many more. I think Chairman Rogers and I have been to at least 40 countries. And believe me, Yemen is no Bermuda, and Pakistan is no Paris. But we also feel it's our responsibility to meet with intelligence and military professionals on the front lines so we can learn what is really going on, as I've said before. I remember, a funny story, had to go up to the Afghan-Pakistan border. And we went up in a Russian airplane because if they saw it was an American, then we might get shot at. But we also had to dress up as Arabs and in the rural area. Can you imagine me in that big hat? And but the reason, if we would have gotten out of the airplane, if we were at a Pakistani base, and they saw we were west, they would possibly shoot mortars in. So you have to do that when you go to these different places. As a member of the Gang of Eight, the chairman and I also are briefed of some of the most sensitive information facing our nation. We were briefed on and involved with the hunt for Osama bin Laden months before we brought him to justice. That's a nice way of saying it. People always ask me, what keeps me up at night? Because we get sensitive information all year round, almost every day sometimes, and every week. And I do say, besides spicy Mexican food, I tell them weapons of mass destruction entering the country undetected, and a catastrophic cyber attack shutting down our water supplies, our power grids, our businesses, or our banking systems. Now imagine the effect on the economy if commerce just stopped because the banking system is shut down. These are real threats. They're there, and it can happen today, it can happen tomorrow. And that type of attack will cost us not only millions, but billions of dollars. And I guarantee you, as we speak, some companies in this room here today are being cyber attacked and you're not aware it's happening. It's a very serious issue. U.S. websites and our nation's networks are being attacked by foreign governments and criminal groups, terrorist groups, trying to steal our money and also our valuable trade secrets. Cyber thieves and terrorists and other groups and nation states like China and others are also cyber attacking us to gain a national security advantage and an economic advantage. They're using this information to get ahead of American companies, stealing our pharmaceutical formulas, fertilizer makeups. And what I mean by fertilizer, this is how serious it is with China. China makes fertilizer, and so do we. And they have cyber attacked a fertilizer company in the United States to get information to see if they can have a competitive edge to make their fertilizer better than ours. Now, we all know what makes fertilizer, right? Okay. It's early. But they are also, and this is what's really important, stealing our information and stealing our jobs. Chairman Rogers and I right now have had an investigation in our committee for the last year against two major Chinese companies, Huawei and ZTE. And we're determining whether there's a connection between them and the Chinese military, Chinese government, because we know the Chinese government, we have the facts the Chinese government are cyber attacking our businesses. So it's something that we're focusing on right now, and you'll hear more about that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We should come out with our report sometime in October, and you'll probably see some of that on 60 Minutes also. Now, in 2010, and I'll give you an example of what happens. In 2010, a chemist, not the guy I talked about in the beginning, the little joke, who worked for a paint company near Chicago, was convicted of stealing specialized paint formulas and trying to give them to a company in China, where the chemist, David Yen Lee, had accepted a new job. The paint company that was ripped off was Valspar Corporation, headquartered in Minneapolis, and they make the paint you buy at Lowe's. Prosecutors say Mr. Lee simply downloaded the information from Valspar's secure computer network onto a thumb drive. The government estimates these formulas could be worth up to $20 million because of all the research and development that went into perfecting them. Mr. Lee was sentenced to 15 months in prison, and prosecutors don't believe the Chinese company Nippon ever got access to the data, but what if they did? This would give them a huge market advantage. They would have gotten something for free by stealing it, which cost Valspar $20 million to develop this product. In fact, $300 billion of trade secrets are stolen every year from the United States, according to United States Cyber Command, who, by the way, is located at Fort Meade. And that is just one incident that we know about. There are many. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of incidents like this. Many companies don't even know they're being attacked. And the intelligence community has the capacity to see these attacks coming. However, due to current laws, we're unable to tell these companies what has happened. And what I mean about the capacity, we have some of the best in the world in what we do at NSA and in our intelligence community. We have the capability and the technology to see these attacks coming in every day. And yet, the laws don't allow the intelligence community we call this malware, the bad stuff, to be able to give information to the business community and the networks who protect us and who really most of us have, whether it's a Verizon, whether it's an AT&T, a Comcast, any of these providers. Now, over a year ago, Chairman Rogers and I got together and said, what can we do to fix this problem that is in the jurisdiction of our Intelligence Committee? We brought together a broad range of private sector companies, including Facebook, Microsoft, Google, trade groups, privacy groups, ACLU, advocates, and the executive branch, including the White House. 1 year, we researched and tried to come up with what we thought was legislation that could help us protect our country from cyber attacks. We came up with a basic, simple bill that does big things. The Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act, and we call it CISPA. It's an important information sharing bill. Now, the intelligence community has the ability, as I said, to detect these cyber threats, malicious codes, viruses, and before they get to the networks. But again, the federal law prohibits, it's a 1947 law, the intelligence community from sharing the classified cyber threat intelligence with companies. Imagine if you were a weather forecaster and you had information that a hurricane like Katrina was heading to New Orleans, but you weren't allowed to warn Louisiana residents and businesses that it was coming. And that's what's happening right now until we pass this law. That is exactly, again, what's happening, and our bill does change that. And it's something that well, I'm going to get more into the bill. It allows the intelligence community to share the malware, the bad stuff, viruses, and other harmful codes, which is also, we call it the secret sauce, to allow the intelligence community to give the secret sauce to the companies, mainly the tier 1 providers that I talked about, AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, Quest, and others. Internet service providers, the group that I just mentioned, handle about 80% of all email traffic for American businesses and personal computers. So again, this will go a long way to protecting us. Now, these internet providers, or ISPs as we call them, keep a lookout for these viruses and work to stop the malicious code before it is able to attack a system. ISPs can then voluntarily, this is pursuant to our bill, give information about the cyber attack back to the government. Mostly it's formulas, O's and ones, and formulas such as that, technical information about the threat. Now, cyber analysts will use this information to better understand the attack, to try to figure out who launched it and when and from where, so they can prevent that attack and future attacks. This legislation also has strong privacy protections built into it. For a year, we worked with privacy and civil liberties advocates, business groups, as I said before, to come up with a bill that will make a difference, that protects us and yet protects our civil liberties. The bill severely limits what kind of information can be shared with the government. The bill requires an annual report from the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community to ensure none of the information provided to the government is mishandled or misused. The government cannot require companies to do or hand over anything. It's voluntary. The entire process, again, is voluntary. And that was extremely important to the business community. The bill does not allow the government to monitor private networks, read private emails, censor or shut down any website. In fact, the bill encourages companies to participate, and as I said before, in a voluntary way. Companies who participate in the program can receive liability protection if they act in good faith to protect their networks from cyber attacks. And that was another important issue that we had a lot of debate on, and we put that in the bill. That's important to the business community also. More than 20 companies and industry groups have written letters of support for our bill. Companies like Microsoft, Facebook, AT&T, Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, and Financial Services Roundtable. The bill passed the House at the end of April by a strong bipartisan margin, even though the President threatened to veto the bill at the last minute. This shows that members of the House of Representatives recognize and understand the cyber threat is out there and that we need to act now. Now, unfortunately, the Senate took a completely different attack with cybersecurity. It decided to create a large, comprehensive bill that deals with critical infrastructure, education, information sharing, and more. Senator Reid brought the bill up for consideration just before recess, but it died. This is incredibly disappointing, but this should not be the end of the line for cybersecurity legislation. Chairman Rogers and I have talked to Senator Feinstein and Senator Chambliss, and they're the chair and vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, our counterparts. And we are working very closely with them as we speak now to try to come up with a cyber bill that we can support right away. There's also talk about the White House issuing an executive order to handle some of these threats. We don't know if it's going to work. Again, the devil's in the details. But the White House at this point has not told us what that's about. But we all know this threat is real and it can happen today or tomorrow. An executive order, again, does not excuse Congress from passing legislation that acts on cyber security threats. Now, the director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, NSA Director General Alexander, and Homeland Security Janet Napolitano have all publicly stated that we're vulnerable to a destructive cyber attack by a foreign government such as Iran or a terrorist group. This is real. Chairman Rogers and I are committed to keep pushing the envelope and working with all the parties involved to pass the legislation, hopefully this year. And finally, I'd like to talk about what Maryland is doing for cybersecurity. Watch out, Silicon Valley. Maryland should be called the Cyber Valley of the United States. We are the cyber, our government, at least, and our facilities in Maryland, and what we do in Maryland, we're the cyber capital of the world. NSA, which is the largest employer in Maryland, Fort Meade, Aberdeen, this whole corridor. If we continue to grow as we are, we will have probably as many, if not more, in 10 years, technical jobs in Silicon Valley. We again, are the cyber capital of the world and have more jobs working on, more people working in that area than any place else. We have, again, as I stated, the bases, the military bases, Aberdeen, again, Fort Meade, NSA. Now, the opportunities have multiplied with the additions also at Fort Meade of U.S. Cyber Command, and their job is to basically protect the network, the military and intelligence network. They're located at Fort Meade. Also, we have Defense Information Systems, that's called DISA. Over 4,000 jobs came from DISA. That's kind of like the AT&T for the government, for the Department of Defense and Intelligence. Again, all at Fort Meade. The technology produced within the federal government will eventually move to the marketplace, too, for both large and small companies. We're attracting hundreds of companies, not just the big defense companies, but dozens of startups here in the state of Maryland. The growth in this sector is going to explode even more so, and will provide jobs for Marylanders for years and years to come. And I can't get into specific figures because it's classified, but the media has reported that probably in Maryland, in this corridor, we'll see a 40% increase in federal spending on cyber by 2016. And as we know we have issues relating to the budget, and we have to downsize in a lot of areas, but this is the one area that we're going to keep focusing on because it's so serious, the threat's so serious, and we have to keep moving ahead and staying on top of all types of intellectual properties, all sorts of any type of intelligence. We are the cyber capital. Now, many of you here today representing all sorts of different companies will benefit from this expansion. It's a multiplier effect, whether you're in the cyber area, whether you sell real estate, insurance, you own stores, you have contracting, whatever that may be. We're all going to multiply with high-paying jobs coming to our area. And one of the things we, the elected officials in this area, what's important about growth, and I've learned this in my 17 years in local government, when you grow, you have to make sure that you do not negatively impact on existing businesses or residential communities. So it's very important that we work together, federal, state, and local, and including working with our Attorney General, who's here today, Attorney General Gansler. We're all coming together as a team, one team, to try to do what we can do to help our area. The final thing I do want to say, we also have tremendous research institutions in this area: UMBC, Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland College Park, Towson University, University of Maryland University College, community colleges. And these research universities and also community colleges are critical to Maryland's success as they provide a pipeline of highly qualified future cyber warriors. That is what we call STEM education. We need to get the next generation moving into this area. We have to tap into this talent and find a way to forge this group along with the public-private partnerships to keep us competitive and accelerating in the cyber world. We have a tremendous amount of private sector jobs that are helping us do this at Fort Meade and Aberdeen in this whole area. Jobs, jobs, jobs. The cybersecurity threats are great, but I know Maryland and the rest of our region can rise to occasion and make a real difference in protecting our nation. It is what we must do to keep our country safe and America on the road to economic prosperity. Thank you, for having me here. And now